I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
In my association with Project Group, they definitely withheld information.
The whole fleet of them look on the ASA. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely.
Welcome, everyone, to tonight's very special live episode of Total Disclosure Podcast. We're diving deep into one of the most provocative and discussed topics of our time, the existence of UFOs, alien life, and the potential of covert operations within our government. Tonight, we have an extraordinary show planned. In recent months, many are stepping forward claiming knowledge of our government's involvement in UFOs and the beings that pilot them. The whistleblower known as Charles McNeal, or Truth Told 24 on X, claims to have received multiple, up to 8 classified briefings on UFOs and alien intelligence. Not only that, but he's here to shed light on what might be one of the biggest cover-ups in history, a possible staged alien invasion or false flag operation designed to manipulate global events. Charles McNeal has come forward with information and evidence that he says could change how we perceive our place in the universe, and it challenged the boundaries of what we believe about our own government secrets. We'll explore the details of these briefings, the nature of the non-human intelligence he's been briefed about, and the shadowy figures potentially collaborating with these extraterrestrial entities. Get ready for a mind-bending discussion where we seek truth, challenge skepticism, and hopefully uncover some of the mysteries that have long been kept in the dark. Without further ado, let's welcome Charles McNeal to the show. Now, he is calling in
now from regular to reserves all the way to special forces. So I had an Air Force soldier was my counselor. And, well, by the way, Richard Doty just messaged me, said he's literally on a plane flying back from DC. He can't make it. So just so you know. So basically that kind of threw me off. So basically I had this counselor that was in the Air Force, and we're out on a field op, 2-week field op on the Appalachian Trail, and he's staring up at the stars, and he's like, what do you know about that up there? He starts telling me stuff. I don't think it's real. I don't know what to believe. I have no idea. I know my mentor was retired Air Force intelligence, but I knew that, but I don't know what this all means. So I let him talk. I graduated the program. A couple weeks later, went home. Boom. I see my mentor. This is where it gets interesting. So I see my mentor. And oddly enough, his name was Rick, but they called him Rick anyway. His covert name was Robert May. For anyone listening from Air Force intelligence, you know who I'm talking about. So he asked me what a mentor always asks you, when you come home from something like that. He said, well, did you learn anything? Basically, you're going to stay out of trouble. So I thought I was going to be a smartass. And yeah, I learned that your Air Force sent 12 soldiers to live on another planet back in the 1960s. And it was called Project Crystal Night. And he grabbed the hold of the front of my Echo bubble coat and he pinned me between the door and the seat. And it dawned on me, I knew something I wasn't supposed to know. And we're not talking 2007, 8, and 9 when this stuff was getting leaked. We're talking 2003. This wasn't leaked yet. This wasn't out yet. Very, very few things have been said publicly about anything to do with Serpo. And that's what this was. Project Crystal Negative, Project Serpent, it's the same thing. So when that happened, um, he ended up dropping me back off at my house and saying, what'd you think about the information? And I'm like, I know I can't know more. I don't even want to get me involved, whatever. He said, I'll be in touch. 2 weeks later, he shows up. I go with him. He said, give him my word as a man. I'm not going to start talking about this stuff if he ever does tell me anything. So I gave my word as a man. We ended up going. Oddly enough, I swear this is how crazy this is. He ended up taking me to a freaking motel, caddy corner from the Flamingo restaurant on Route 30 in Fayetteville, Pennsylvania. If anybody knows where that place is at. And we pull up to the room itself, and I go in, and he points at a bag on the bed, and he said, there's snacks if you get hungry. Pointed at a cooler on the floor. Said there's refreshments if you get thirsty. Pointed at the bathroom. Said there's a bathroom if you need to take a bathroom break. And he pointed at the chair and said, "Are you ready?" I said, "I'm ready." And he sat me down. The chair was actually facing the bed, and the back of it was facing the TV. And he went to the table and he pulled out a bunch of files out of these cardboard boxes with lids he took off, and he spread them out on the bed. And he started handing me, different files, and he's briefing me verbally as I'm reading these files and telling me what I'm reading. This is 6.5 hours, and I'm seeing pictures. I'm seeing pictures of bugs they brought back. The Kingman, Arizona craft, it was actually 90 feet. It actually had handwritten notes on the side of it that said 90 feet. And just a whole rack of things that I actually got to see details of and transcripts of this. And just, MJ12 files and the final report with Carl Sagan's signature on it. I'm sitting here like I thought he was a skeptic. The whole time he was part of this whole thing. And it was just insane. And it turned into not just 2, not just 3, it turned into 8 total briefings over 9.5 years. And I thought they were illegal, off the books, and all that. And then I recently found out last summer it was actually a very controversial program called Operation Society Hike with United States Air Force Intelligence, IFOSI. And Richard Doty actually came forward and spoke a lot about it and about being briefed about me specifically, because a lot of that was countering espionage, counterterrorism stuff that, they were trying to get these guys that were rough and tough from the streets or whatever to go out and do these missions. But only a couple of us were picked for the secret space program and UFO stuff. And my handling agent was my childhood mentor. So it's my position and Rick's position and a few others that he actually included stuff he had no business including. So I have a little bit more than the other people that I guess are on missions now. I was terminated from the program when I was wrongfully incarcerated 2012. So that's how I know what I know. So and it's funny you even said Harvard grad, because we were doing a space when Reptile Hybrid was the host back. I think it was in October or November. You can probably find that. It's Disclosure Part 2. It's in my highlights somewhere. And Richard Doty came on and he talked about that. And he said, they're not looking for, when it comes to stuff like that, and intelligence, counterintelligence, and programs that are that clandestine and that take years and years of grooming the individual, the asset. They're not looking for a Harvard grad. They're not looking for a clean cut guy. They're a woman. They're looking for rough, tough, somebody who's not going to back down from a fight. This is his words, not mine. Not somebody who's not going to back down from a fight. Somebody who's has no fears because they need you to be able to be programmed to go in and follow orders and know it doesn't matter if it's a one-way trip. If it's a mission, you take them orders, you go. And it's more than patriotism can only get people certain lengths. When it comes to stuff like that, we're not talking war, we're talking one-man missions. We're talking stuff like that, and that's what this program was designed to do, was to grab people. That's why it's called Operation Society Hike, is to take people from different societies and find individuals through the vetting process of sharing certain things that you would think you can't share that. There's no background clearance being done on that individual. They are very good at this program, and it's still classified. You're not going to be able to find. I mean, you might, maybe, if you put a FOIA in, they'll just black it all out and redact it. But I'm telling you now, when he described it, it made perfect sense to me. But I still wasn't somebody they were going to just recruit out of the blue. It wasn't until I came home and said what I said, letting him know, somebody that was in Operation Society Hike as an administrator out of Fort Bellevue, if I'm not mistaken. I was unaware that he was even in that. So when I said, hey, look, basically, I have classified information about a very, very, very huge project that's no one's supposed to know about, he then made the decision to contact who he contacted a couple weeks later and have me put into this program unbeknownst to me. I thought I was just getting illegal briefings and he was just my homie. Like, that was my uncle type thing, his mentor. He's looking out and teaching me all this stuff. And the whole time he was grooming me for this program. And everything was going smooth. Even when I was being a knucklehead, being in and out county and stuff like that, he'd find me and say, hey, man, what are you doing? Like, get your head in the game? Like, and that would always segue into eventually saying, well, hey, look, I'm coming by in the morning. I got something to show you. And we know what that meant. Or, hey, I got something, let's take a ride. We know what that meant. That meant briefing. So it was just, if it wasn't a personal relationship I had with somebody that was an administrator in there, I would have never been chosen. I can tell you that. It was happenstance. And even though they were looking for somebody of my caliber, we'll say, or my background, I still would not have been in a position to be chosen if it wasn't for those circumstances. Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. And that actually is a pretty good point, because that's just the unclassified things that they used to do when they needed people for active duty or military service, or just to put you in the service and station you in Germany over there. I mean, I knew somebody in my family, I won't say who it was, but they were given that choice. And this was back, and they were born in the late 40s, so this was back in the early 60s, mid 60s, and they were sent to Germany to drive milk truck for the army. So it's not like you had to see combat for that, So that precedent is just something people know about. Can you imagine what that same exact mindset and precedent would conjure up in a clandestine intelligence operation to do with the most secretive programs in the United States history? You're going to have them break rules. They're going to think outside the box. And this is, just the way of the world. This is how it goes. Like, I don't need to like it or dislike it or anyone else. It's facts. I mean, it's how it is. Yeah, and I basically, what I said a minute ago is the best explanation for it. It wasn't even supposed to be me, even though I fit the profile for what they were looking for. But when I came home and I told my mentor, who was actually running, he was a senior field agent for Air Force Intelligence out of Fort Bellevue, where they were running this program at. And he just happened to be on leave out in my area when I met him. And then he came back out there to find me. And when I said what I said, I'm telling him like, hey, I know about this operation. This is the name of it. This is what you did. And it's the biggest operation ever in the history of the United States. He's like, what? So it was basically either do something to me, or bring me in. And in my mind, he brought me in illegally. I didn't know until last summer about the operation. And I found it extremely, like, it made more sense to me than what I believed my entire life. And it fit for me. And I really appreciated when Rick came forward with that. Okay, so how it would go down would be it always be a motel. It would always be somewhere he already purchased before we got there. It would always be somewhere where it would be keys instead of the key cards, even though early 2000s, mid 2000s, even when they started incorporating them things, it still he still used regular stuff, right? Still regular keys, and I never really knew why. I didn't ask, didn't care. And he would always he would always have the same refreshments, cooler, and bathroom. There you go. Here, are you ready? Type of speech. Like he had, you could tell he was used to giving briefings and stuff like that. You could tell it was a whole little military setup. So um, it would always be spread out on the bed, and it would always be anywhere from 5 hours to the longest
Just 5 minutes.
was almost 9 hours, I believe. Can you still hear me? I just heard reverb.
Whether
Reverb.
you're moving
Comments?
Subject or whatever, and then sometimes he would bring up other stuff from other
Yes, I am
briefings that
smoking.
connect it,
This is
and
my
then
night
have
off,
new
so
files
you
on
guys
it,
get
or
me
old files
raw.
that now
Tonight it's
connected to
just
these
raw
new files.
Tyler.
And
But if
it's just so
if
much
anyone
stuff.
of
I mean,
you
it was
saw
thousands of
UFO
files, and
Revolution, the
AFOSI,
season,
they have access to all the different, special operations command out of McNeal Air Force Base is where all this is kept, and they have access to DIA reference manuals, not the ones that I'm talking about, the classified ones. And they have MJ-12 special operations manuals and CIA caretaker reference manuals from Group 6. And they have all this stuff, and then they have their own synopsises put together. And all of these different, all of it Magic Eyes Only from 1953 on, when it had to do with MJ-12 stuff, or this subject under top secret code word clearance, which is a clearance people don't even know exists. They think it's made up. It's not. It's a whole rack of stuff, and he was showing me all of it and briefing me on all of it.
that's okay. So what happens? What's your initial reaction to all of this? Because it can't just be, oh, okay. Like at first, when did you realize what he was actually telling you? He wasn't bullshitting, and this was actually serious stuff.
Well, me knowing him, knowing how serious he was, like I said, we had a personal relationship first. So I know him. I knew this man, right? And so when he first brought me in there and he asked me if I was ready and he started spreading these out, I mean, I was shocked, and he was even including me. And then the shock turned into my body was shaking at first, like, and you know how adrenaline starts to take over when you're like fighting as a kid. That's how it was, and it's like my body was shaking, and just like I was explaining to my girl earlier about like when I first was in court for the first time, you know, like your legs are shaking and stuff. I was like really nervous because I don't know what the hell is going. I don't know if anybody's gonna kick the door in. I don't know what's going on, and then I started to calm. I started to calm, and after my first briefing, I felt like I couldn't sleep for days and days, and I couldn't tell anybody. And but then it was like living a double life. It was like I'm in the streets doing this, and then I have this. And like when somebody brings something up that I know is not real, it's like I can't say anything. All I can say is, "Are you sure about that?" You know, or when I see a movie that's part of the public acclamation program, and I'm sitting there like, "Wow, whole time he told me to look for that. Right there it is." And and it was just a whole bunch of "I told you so" moments in my head, and now I'm able to do a few of them publicly, and I'm just trying to get the information out to the people. I don't be on here trying. I don't be on here begging people for money and stuff. Like I've had people
Yeah,
donate, a couple dollars here and there and stuff like that. But I'm not on here trying to do none of that. And I need it, but I'm not out here begging for it. It's not about that for me. It's about trying to get the information to the people so we can replace, what the problem is and stop what's coming.
which I think is a very commendable thing of you. I really do. And if you're actually, 100%, and the only one that is hurt by, if you were not telling the truth is you. Because everyone else will eventually find out. So I hate how the community acts sometimes. They're very quick to make snap judgments, and it upsets me sometimes because it I think that we should hear everybody out, and we should give everyone a chance to tell their truth, their story. And then, you can make a direct apprehension all you want. You can believe or not believe. You can choose to share or not share, that person's evidence or story. What we shouldn't do is just quickly label things and throw the baby out with the bathwater. And with that being said, I want to get back to some of the questions. I do want to say thank you for doing this. I know it's not easy, and like you said, you're in a particular situation that's not desirable, but you're still here doing it, so it must mean something to you. I want to talk about the staged, the false flag operation, right? So how detailed were the plans for this staged invasion, and who within the government or military was supposedly behind this kind of event?
That was extremely detailed. Hold on, it's a little bit of an echo. All right, there we go. So it was extremely detailed, and there was multiple documents dating all the way back to 1960, and again in 71, and very significant reason for that. And that's actually when the Space Force was formed. It wasn't formed under Trump, and it was directly connected to this, and it was released under Trump. Whether he knows that or I don't know. I don't know if he knows that or not. He might have been led to believe it was his idea the whole time. But either way, he takes credit, and he needs credit. He needs credit for that. I don't take that from him. But the fact is, it was formed because of what I'm telling you about in 1971. And then again, in the late 70s, there was another document, and I've said this way before anyone else has said this, but recently Jeremy Corbell has come forward, and I don't sit here and co-sign a lot of stuff that he says, but that's a fact. There is a document that talks about telling you a lie, telling you truth, so you can then believe the lie. That's a fact. And the truth is aliens are real. Aliens have been here. Roswell happened. The lie is that they are a threat to national security and that they are on their way. And the whole false INW is at the end of the 70-year contract we have with ETE-1 extraterrestrial entity 1, which from the Rigel star system, there's 4 different types of grays, started in 1954 under the Eisenhower administration by way of the MJ-12. That contract ran out September 24th of 2024. And then that segues, then we move into the next phase, which is 3 years with the Galactic Federation of Light that they gave us in 1971 when Valiant Thor came back and formed a secret space program with the United States government and the MJ-12, and then through the United Nations Security Council, the rest of the world. And it all runs through the MAGIC, which is MAJIC, which is Military and Joint Intelligence Committee. It's completely classified. That's what MAGIC Eyes Only stands for. It means them only, and the eyes only that are cleared for that they've cleared, or MJ-12 is cleared to view it. So that's what that means. And that has, ever since that was formed in 53, that's who's been responsible this entire time, and it's worldwide. And everybody asks, how could they get this country and this country to do this? Because they've infiltrated them. And when they don't play ball, or when they can't infiltrate them, they take them over and they kill the dictator or the president or whoever. Or if they can't supplant who they need within that government, they replace that government. That's why all these things are taking place. So the point was to get everybody at their lowest point, get everybody down at their lowest possible morale, start World War III and civil wars, pitting everybody against each other, straight Willie Lynch syndrome style, and pit this against this against that, and you divide and conquer. And then once you just think it can't get any worse, and World War III and civil wars at its peak, they stage a fake alien invasion. And you're like, why would they do any of this, McNeal? Why would they do any of this, Charles? Because that 3-year deal with Galactic Federation of Light is we have to have a one world government by the end of that 3 years, which is 2027. September 2027, if we don't have a one world government, they leave. And if they leave, CBE4, aka the Tranaloids, they will come. They're the only deterrent that keeps them from coming here. All the other species that are here, they're willing to go to war with. The GFL, the Galactic Federation of Light, they're thousands of words. They're deep. They are a deterrent, and we are part of that. That we have the insignia on our starships, the USS Hillencoulter and all of those are real. USS Vannevar Bush, those are real. So those have the insignia to be able to travel the stars and keep the Tranaloids at bay. So they need to form a one world government. The only way in their mind, their fucking sadistic minds back from the 1960s on, was to stage this fake alien invasion and make everybody on the planet feel like we have to come together to fight a common enemy. And that's what they're going to do. And that's what they're gearing you up for. That's why all these so-called insiders and whistleblowers are coming forward telling you, yeah, aliens are real, but they might invade, though. Yeah, they're real, but they're a threat to national security, though. Oh, yeah, that Roswell happened, but that species is a threat to national security, though. I wish everybody would go. I wish the best internet sleuths or TV sleuths would go back, look at every single whistleblower that has testified in front of Congress, given any interview, every Elizondo interview, every interview that any of these so-called insider whistleblowers have given or testimony they've given. I want you to count up and even put a video montage together that every single time they use the phrase threat to national security, and watch what you come up with. You will be amazed at what you hear because they are drilling that home. And then these drones. This was a display that I told you was going to happen months ago. And then what it is, it's alien reproduction technology mixed with regular technology. And then it gives you the panic, and then they snatch it back from you and make you just wonder, what was that? Well, what the hell was that? That way, in a little ways time, and there's going to be some more events like that too. And in a little ways time, then you think back and you're like, oh, the whole time that's what was going on, and now it's too late. But the whole time they're not real aliens. They're called programmed life forms, PLFs. We've been building them since 1978. They're little grays. They're not UFOs. They're ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. We've been building them. We're starting with flying disc simulators in the 1950s as we reverse engineered the Kingman, Arizona crash and the other Roswell craft that was still intact that we recovered in 49. That's what we've been doing. And we're going to use, people call it blue beam. Blue beam is just a piece. It's just a cog in the wheel. All it is NASA. That's actually NASA. NASA's holographic technology. And all that is to make 1,000 ARVs look like 10,000, invading with an entire armada of this planet. That's it. And that's what all this is, man. All this is. And that briefing gave What they have is called precursors. So when a certain event happens, everybody around the world knows there doesn't need to be direct phone call communications or anything like that, text. They know when this happens, okay, phase 2. When this happens, okay, next phase. So what we're looking for now, some of the things have happened early, some of the things are behind schedule. So right now we're looking for the behind schedule moment would be the James Webb Telescope identifying biological and technological signatures in the same star system. TRAPPIST-1, as an Alpha Mensae was mentioned, and the date April 23rd of 2023 was also mentioned. And then you have ones that haven't been scheduled to happen until later on this year, which would be the Israel's Dome with the rock being destroyed on purpose so that 3 different religions all beef with each other over who can rebuild it first to usher in biblical time prophecy. So it starts that whole war that they need in the Middle East, and picking sides and all this world stage is a fucking stage. That's all it is. So it's the real stage. Are you there?
Oh shit, I was muted. Sorry. So a lot of what you're saying kind of so it rings a little of kind of like what Dr. Greer says. I just want to get your input. What are your thoughts on Dr. Greer's take and some of the things that he said? Because a lot of it does line up with what you're saying. So I just want to get your thoughts on him.
So don't get me wrong, I love Greer. I do. I've never met the man. I mean, just like his veracity of coming forward. But Dr. Greer only has about 50% of the information subject-wise. He's not aware of, or at least he's never publicly confirmed, and a lot of things he said, contradicts. He's never been made aware 100% that we have extraterrestrial allies working side by side with us at subterranean bases all over the planet. He's not aware that we have colonies already on a lot of these planets, starting with Little Montana on Serpo. It was started off as base camp for the 11 that made it out of the 12 that was sent. And he's not aware that a lot of these abductions before the 70s or before the late 70s, they were alien. They were alien. They've been abducting people since biblical times. MJ-12 didn't exist till 1947. You can't sit there and blame the United States government and the cabal, as it's called, or the deep state, as people call it. It's all MJ-12. That's what it really is. You can't blame them for things that happened 100 years ago, 200, 300, 400 years ago. Can't, and he doesn't accept that just because that we were doing it, that doesn't mean they were not still doing it. We had a contract to fill. 22,000 Americans it ended up going up to, and that was just Americans. There was millions worldwide that was approved to be abducted, and that wasn't even the catch and release ones. You know what I'm saying?
Who gave the order? Who signed off on abductions?
That would be the Majestic 12 group in 1954. MJ1, if I'm not mistaken, was Vannevar Bush. And yeah, because he was MJ1 before Dulles was MJ1, but he was after Forrestal. So yeah, Vannevar Bush gave that order.
So because a lot of people like to think, or a lot of people say that, one of these UFO history lore things is a story that there was a landing at Holloman Air Force Base in which some extraterrestrials met with the president at the time, the president being Eisenhower. So is that not the case?
Eisenhower, he and his administration, which was MJ-12, MJ-12 was usually like presidential advisors and things like that, scientific advisors and national security advisor and stuff like that. That's usually who they are, or who they're part of the Magi committee. So point is, you can have the administration there and not have him there. I didn't see any evidence that he himself was there. That's why I always say Eisenhower by or per MJ12, because I know it was that administration, but he did meet, I'll say he as in that administration, did meet with three different species, 4 different times total between 1953, 4, 5, and 6.
I was going to say, you mentioned Alien Thor.
Yeah, but that wasn't even what I was talking about with that, what I just mentioned. That was from 57 to 60. And that was all the way up into the Nixon administration. And right when he left was 1960 going into 61. And he came back in 71. You know, I said Nixon administration. I meant this. Nixon wasn't. So that was the 70s. I said the 60s. So point is, you had Eisenhower, and then all the way up through Eisenhower, when Eisenhower left, he gave the speech. He said he called them by a nickname that he gave them because they were classified. He couldn't call them by their real name. So he gave them, you know, in 1961, I believe it was, is when he gave them that that speech. So he was still president when Valiant Thor left. But right after he left is when the next president came in. And then all the way up through the Nixon administration is why I mentioned that, is because when Nixon was president in 71 is when Valiant Thor came back. So I'm sorry for the confusion, but when he came back, and then that's when they formed the Space Force under Nixon. And Nixon was there all the way from when Truman was president. He was part of that administration. He was there for Roswell. He was there for all these. He was there for that. Nixon is hugely involved in this subject, but nobody understands that because all they remember is Watergate, because that's all MJ12 wants you to remember.
That's actually really interesting. So how, you know, to get a little bit personal, or to give a little bit of insight, how do you interpret the recent UFO, UAP sightings over government facilities? Are these part of that acclimation process you've mentioned? You know, let's say the New Jersey drone situation.
Yeah, the New Jersey drone situation, I had actually told people was a display, is what I called it back in September. I said they're going to be doing a display in a matter of months, and what they're going to be doing is showing off the technology, but they're going to be doing a show of force, letting it be known this is what it is. And you say about over government facilities, you have to understand a lot of this stuff is ourself, but ourself doesn't know. You understand what I'm saying? So the right hand never knows what the left hand is doing. So this whole program is less than 1% of all military, all intelligence. It's less than 1%. So over 99% of the military and the intelligence, they have no idea. So what they want to do is let's say, for instance, if you want to see if your ARV's brand new see-through technology, where micro nano cameras they used to use, I'm sure they have better stuff now, but what I was briefed on, they have micro nano cameras. And I say micro and nano together for a reason. They have micro nano cameras. And what they would do is they would take millions of these cameras and put it all as like a sheath or whatever. What's the word? Around something like a wrap it, basically. They wrap it around and it becomes part of the skin of the craft, and everything on the other side of it now projects on this side to where it becomes see-through. Like you see, like you look right through it. So if you want to see if something like that works against the best, detection equipment, where are you going to fly it? You're going to fly it to your own military bases and see if they can see it. If they can, let's see if they can chase it. You're not going to shoot at them. You're not going to, you can shoot at the craft because you can handle it, but that craft's not going to shoot back at your own pilots. It's not time for that yet, but they will during the fake alien invasion. Or you bet your ass they will. They'll be killing their own military. Better bet it.
So, and that that's a very bold statement, right? So that's why when you do say things like that, there are going to be people in this community who respond very concrete in a way. So some of the things that you're saying challenge their reality, challenge reality. So I think that might be what we're crashing up against, at least what you're crashing up against is you're very concrete in what you say. And I will say that you do have a sense of there is something like that. There is something about you that makes me, that gives me that want to believe state. And I got that same feeling when I talked to Richard Doty. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but maybe someone else can tell me. But to dive into this, nature and origin of alien life. So what physical or biological characteristics of these alien species were emphasized in the briefings that you say you received?
Okay, so the briefings that I received, you had right. I know I caught that. So briefings that I did receive, you had the two main lists. No, I'm sorry, three main lists, and then the rest was talked about. So the three main lists was the ETE scale of the first 8 in order of first contact, ETE, and then the number of order of first contact, and then that number stands for a star system. And then you have types A, B, C, D, whatever. It's all part of that star system. So ETE 1 through 8 was one list that was I see in my own eyes. And then another one was the CBE list, which is cloned biological entities, which are created extraterrestrials and extraterrestrial civilizations, kind of like us. They're exactly like us. And that's the CBE scale. There's 4 of those. And then you have the reptoid scale, which are reptilians. And that's type A, type B, and type C. And those are the main 3 lists that they have. But then they allude to by saying there's been documentation of over 150 different intelligent civilizations that have been known to come to this planet that either come from our firsthand knowledge or the histories of other extraterrestrials that we now have in our possession to tell us what took place. That's how we know how Earth was formed. That's how we know how humans were formed. That's how we know all these things, because we have these corroborating civilizations that some don't even talk to each other, and enemies or not, they just don't even communicate, but yet they have the exact same histories about us, about this planet, and then there's a few different competing civilizations as far as who they worship and what they worship. Like ETE1 actually worship technology, an answer to this thing called the Keeper, which is super like sci-fi sounding, but it's facts. And I think it was, it's my opinion that the Keeper is just AI, knowing that they worship technology and that they are biomechanical themselves now. But then you have ETE2 that they created Christianity, modeled it after their own religion, and they pray 5 times a day. And they work like their entire schedule is around prayer all day. And they use a sundial looking thing that's huge in the middle, like Walking Dead style, in the middle of their little community. That as their 2 sons move around, they have this little dial, and it tells them when to work, it tells them when to pray, it tells them when to pray next, and then in between how to when to eat. Like it's a whole little thing. So each society is different, but most of them all have the same ideology, with the exception of a handful of them. But I was briefed on a lot of different ones.
So you're saying that Christianity is I just want to make sure I heard that right. Christianity is you're saying Christianity is derived from a non-human intelligence. Like it was
Yes, 100%. And specifically the New Testament, because the Old Testament was connected to it on purpose to make the New Testament stuff that they were putting together for us, to lead us in a better direction, to make that feel divine to us. And what's more divine than our creation? So they took our actual creation stories from another extraterrestrial species and their histories that actually did create us, to be slaves, and threw us at each other as little petty differences between their own royal families that was here on Earth. And all that's Old Testament stuff. And what they did was they broke it down and said, oh, this is the Old Testament, this is the New Testament. And what they did was, God's not bipolar. There's a reason why the Old Testament is all fire, brimstone, and kill you. And the New Testament is all, turn the other cheek and love thy neighbor. It's because it's 2 separate civilizations living 2 separate ways. But Christianity itself didn't come about until ETE2, which is the Roswell species, wanted to model it about 2,000 years ago, after their own, even including the virgin birth. That all came from their own religion that they subscribed to and they believed in. And they connected to what they refer to as the creator of all things. And that's the same thing that our creators actually refer to as well in their own histories. And pretty much everybody except the biomechanicals and CBEs talk about this creator of all things. And it was described in the classified files as a female presence or female plug type of deal that all consciousness plugs into, and that's actually why every religion thinks they got it right. And when I read that, I was like, what do you mean by that? When I asked him to explain it to me, and he broke it down, he said the reason why every religion thinks they got it right is because all of them feel that connection to God or to the universe, that and they're praying to their God by their name, but yet they're feeling that same connection. And he said that's because no matter what name you use, all of us are connected to this female plug that all consciousness plugs into. And when you pray, that's what you feel. You feel that because it's real. And that's why I said, like, if the truth got revealed, it wouldn't hurt religion, it would strengthen it. Because then you could find out that these stories, they did happen. They are real. People really did live thousands of years at one point in time. Those aren't metaphors. And then you get to find out, like, oh, well, God's also real, and that's what we were actually feeling. And then you can really, like, strengthen religion and stop lying to people all the time and thinking that, you know, you have to kill each other over who's right and who's wrong, when everybody got it right, and then, but everybody got the one same thing wrong, and that's names and identities, and that's it. You know, and it's more simple than people think, but it's complex at the same time.
That's, you know, there I can't remember which UFO story or witness it was, and I noticed that people are requesting to talk. We're going to be going till like 9:15 Eastern, so that's like about another hour. So for the last like 20-30 minutes, I'll open it up and we'll take some questions if you're okay with that, Charles. But so there was this case. It was from a long time ago. I can't remember exactly when, but the person was given like this artifact, this religious artifact, that the ETs allegedly gave him of their creator, quote unquote creator, or what they referred to as, you know, their what they believed in and prayed to, if you will. I can't remember the exact, but that really made me think of that story. I wish I remembered who it was, but that's interesting. So a lot of people think there's the interdimensional aspects to the phenomenon, that there's extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial. Given the information that you saw, that you say that you saw allegedly, is it all of the above? Is it more one or the other? What can you say about that?
I gotta stop myself because I keep catching myself hearing you like you're catching yourself. It's all good. I understand. Gotta remain impartial, but yeah, in my briefings that was mentioned. Yes, that's actually the only ETE scale that does not attach to a star system, and that's ETE 5. And what people call ultra terrestrials are actually listed in the documentation, the classified files, as para-terrestrials, PARA terrestrials. And those are interdimensional beings. And they even described how they're able to do them. And I even found out a couple of them that exist. And believe it or not, swear to God, call me a conspiracy theorist if you want to, but Bigfoot, the real Bigfoot, that's actually a para-terrestrial known as a WADIG, WADIG. And it was leaked back in the late 80s, and with that thing that people call what is that called? The Blue Planet Project. That was real. That really, that's real information as far as that goes. Not everything in there, but that and a few other things. But how it works is they either naturally or technologically, depending on which, they accelerate and decelerate their atomic makeup to be able to traverse dimensionally. And we have this technology to do this. And this is actually, as of my briefing, my last briefing of 2012, is actually what we were experimenting with to be able to travel distances in this dimension by entering in one place in that dimension, seeing how, you know, if you could, you know, fly with a technological craft, 10,000 miles and then exit back in here where you ended up at. And they were mapping that as my last briefing was. And I don't know that they've mastered that, but if they did, then our charged dark matter propulsions would be irrelevant and not even matter anymore. And wormhole travel would be significantly improved instead of staying in there for months on months on months like we currently, or at least as we did as of 2012. So yeah, that's a real thing. But like shadow people, commonly referred to as demons or things like that. There's two different types of shadow people. Hat man is real. That's a supervisor. They work with extraterrestrials. Type A works with extraterrestrials. Type B are like rogue. They do what they want. Those are the ones that sit on your chest and paralyze you while you're sleeping. You can only move your eyes and can't breathe. That's what they are. They're shadow people, and they're commonly misunderstood. And people think that the possessions and things like that are demons, and they think because they're speaking about God and Jesus that gets them out of the body, but that's not actually what it is. There's a reason why they use Latin and ancient Hebrew with those exorcisms, is because the vibrations of those language have extraterrestrial roots, and that those vibrations are actually what is the problem for them and makes them not want to be around that. And so Latin, ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic are the main four languages that have the type of vibration that can expel different types of shadow people. And they're not all bad, but the ones that work with extraterrestrials are mainly matriarchal lines, and they attach to the females in families, and they stay attached to the daughters, and then the daughters, and they might skip a generation and they show back up. And I don't know any type of lifespans when it comes to these things. That wasn't listed, and I don't like to talk about things that I don't know, so I don't know the answer to that. They could live forever, they could live for a day, I have no idea, but I know that they attach and they stick to matriarchal lines. As far as other interdimensional beings, I know that there's a blob-looking thing. It's weird, but it's intelligent and telepathically communicates. There's quite a few things that are, as of 2012, they were still trying to figure out, but there was a lot they already knew. And a lot of these crash retrievals and a lot of these other civilizations is where they get this information from. And then they take that and they travel there and they see it for their own eyes. We have footage of all this stuff. We have footage, we have documentations of missions in other dimensions and stuff like movie stuff, like public acclamation program. So yeah.
And you know what you said? There's something that you just said, like the Latin. It comes out with these vibrations, and I find that to be interesting because it's something I've talked about before. There was a study done where they froze water, drops of water, and they would speak to the water. I can't remember which university or institution it was, but they would speak to the water, freeze it, and when they spoke positive words or things that implored positivity, like saying joy and then freezing it, it would come out with this beautiful crystal. But then if you spoke something like that had a negative connotation, like war, something that we perceive as negative, the crystals would form like really weird. So what they were trying to say is your words matter. Literally, they affect the matter around you. So I find that to be kind of interesting that you talk about vibration of language, because it seems like a lot of these cases involve telepathy. So there'd be the absence of noise. So at what time what's the correlation there? I find that to be interesting. That's not like a question. That's just an open thought.
Yeah, a lot of the telepathy, though, with these abductions comes from technologically having these, like, not chips, but they're like biological implants that they end up, they're not all the same style because they're not all the same civilization, but they're basically the same type of technology. Usually either behind the ear or somewhere, in the body, to where it either dissolves or it attaches. And it's hard to either get rid of or you can't even detect it. And what it does is they use that technology, that implant, to then telepathically communicate with you, and you don't remember getting abducted. You don't remember the implant being put in. You can't detect it for the most part anyway. So you don't know. You think that, they're just speaking to me telepathically because they have that ability naturally. The majority don't. They do that with technology. And we did it for the first time back in the 70s with, actually starting in 65, with the CBE that was presented to us as part of the exchange with Project Serpo, the J-Rod. J-Rod, and there was another one, CBE1.
Yeah, Doty speaks of this.
Yeah, CBE1 had the implant in him. J-Rod's the one that let him go. He's the one that let him go because of what we were doing to him. But J-Rod was the one that we were presenting. And he was speaking telepathically, with CBE1. And now if you look at CBE1, it's not an individual, it's an entire species that are from what that individual was cloned from. It's a CBE. And that's part of the CBE list that I told you about. And yeah, so if that just goes to show you. So if Doty talked about it, I'm telling you, he saw a lot of the same files I saw. I mean, he'll tell you himself that he didn't get to see everything I saw because he wasn't part of that extensive of different compartments. But just in the compartmentalized couple sections that he saw and what he was briefed on and what he, might have been or not been there for,
Right.
he definitely knows that particular incident very well. Let's just say that.
Right. Understood. So what do you, how do you respond to skeptics? Because there's going to be plenty. How do you respond to those who demand more kind of a concrete proof? What would it take, or what would be necessary for you to reveal the more classified information and a more, I don't know how to really word this better, but how do you respond to skeptics who are going to demand more proof, evidence? I know you've posted pictures and other stuff on your feed, but to some that's just not going to, it's not going to do it.
Well, usually for those individuals, not all, but for those individuals, most of the time, I could land a UFO on their lawn and they'll still call it a hoax. So it's just how it is. At the end of the day, the ones that actually make sense when they say, okay, well, I like this, but it would be nice if you, release some evidence, some more evidence, or some actual documentation. And I tell them the same thing every time. I love how they came respectfully. I appreciate that, but understand something. What you're asking for is the actual classified files, and they're classified under, even the clearance itself is classified. You're not even allowed to know that the clearance exists, let alone the files. So unless the ones that have been lying to you decide to then release these files, you're not gonna get it. You are literally now in touch with an individual who has nothing to gain and everything to lose. And I'm just sitting here telling people, look, I know the one true story from the 20 different accounts of this story, the 20 different accounts of this story, because I hear that a lot too. Oh, you're just rehashing old shit. Really? Because last time I checked, there was 30 different stories at Roswell. I've heard 4 different dates. But if I'm sitting here telling you this happened on this time, at this time, at this time, and I'm giving you dates, I'm giving you times, and then they say, well, where's this at? I said, okay, check this out. Here's the file numbers. Boom. How far do you want me to go? I can't do anything more without handing you files that I haven't had access to since 2012. I can't do it. So to use that as an excuse to not listen and not get prepared and try to stop what's coming with me, you're only going to be hurting yourself. So as far as like trolls and stuff like that, I block about 10 people a day, and that's just the people I see, because I got certain, especially over the last week, I've had about 5 posts that garnered about close to 4 million views just with those 5 posts, and you know how many comments that is. There's hundreds of trolls in there, but if I catch them on there, I let them know, look, I open skepticism. I'm open to it. I love those type of conversations because I know I can bring the facts. But don't come and disrespect us. Don't come and disrespect the comments. Don't try to troll and be funny and try to troll like Stephen Kabian talking about all this kitty touching nonsense. It's all lies. Yeah, it's all lies, man. And I see people trying to quote that. I'm like, are you serious? All you gotta do is case search me. I've never even been accused of some shit like that, let alone convicted or charged or anything. I've never had anything like that type of charge ever in my life, ever.
Yeah, and I do want to clear, and I get a little upset with this kind of shit. So sorry if I just cut you off a little, but listen, and this goes to everybody. If you are calling someone that name, or that, if you're trying to attach that title and it's not real and it's not true, listen, there are real fucking ramifications. There are real consequences to saying something like that. And there are plenty. You can call Charles an asshole, a liar. that's where it should that's where it draws the line, right? When you step past that and you start putting those things on, that's stuff that you can literally ruin someone's life with. So just, it just aggravates me a little bit when people start throwing those words around. Not only do they lose their sense of whatever it is, their I can't even say it because I have to say the word, but it's like how the left throws around, they call Trump Hitler, like, or they call them Nazis and stuff. It's like, all right, listen, he's not, right? He's not a Nazi. He's I see what you're trying to say, but listen, like the Nazis, they put people in concentration camps, and they did a certain level of thing that, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm starting to ramble now, but you get my point. You can't say those things. It's very, very, it gets me very upset. So people like Stephen Cambion, listen, I think he has his audience. I think he has his place in the community, but he does throw around these really massive claims about people, and you just gotta watch out. So I'm sure you already know and have handled all these kind of things before, but it really does upset me.
Yeah, and it blows my mind because I understand where I'm at, right? If anybody would come up to my table where I'm sitting at, and me and my homie sitting around, or my friends, as somebody that doesn't use that term, and we're just sitting here, and somebody was to come up to me and say that, do you understand how quickly I would have to grab those around me so they didn't whoop his ass?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just talk about people and call them that. Like, you can't just put that bad bone on somebody because you ain't got the black and white to prove that, because it never happened. That's
Right.
like calling me. Well, I can't use that term anyway because we're still on YouTube, right? So okay, so that's like that's like calling me somebody who would do something very of that nature to a female grown too. Like, and I'm sure people are following along. That's never been accused of me, but it's like, if you say that, that's a bad bone you're putting on my name. That's like calling me a rat. Where I live at, that gets you killed. You know
That,
what I mean? So
yeah.
there's stuff you can't just put something on somebody and not be like, all it was this dude named Area 503 that tried to shut me down when I first came forward, my very first space with Grider. And shout out to Grider, who's come forward and admitted, he was wrong, and all is well. I fuck with Grider now; he's a good dude. So point is, Area 503 tried to get everybody not to listen to me. Oh, he's in prison, by the way. Like, everybody knows, bro. Nobody cares. That has nothing to do with the information. So when that happened and it didn't work for him, he's the one that contacted Stephen Cambion and gave him this whole blown up timeline of all my little incarcerations or whatever, bacon cards, whatever, and uses that as an excuse to say there's no way he got his briefing because it's during the same time. Dude, listen to what I said on my whistleblower account, my document back 3 years ago when I put it up on acclimatenow.com. It's got a 25-minute thing, and I say it on there in between my incarcerations. I told you that, right? And what he did was take the same charge and list it like 24 different times, but all they are is court dates. You know what I'm saying? And what they do is charge you with the same thing like 5, 6 times, and really the conviction is only of the one thing. But this dude for Area 503, he put all this stuff on there and acted like it was all like, you know what I'm saying, and blew it all out of proportion and tried to act like I was this, I was that. And obviously Stephen Cavey's going to go right with it, because anything he can latch on to try to convince everybody aliens ain't real, UFOs don't exist, going to use it. And everybody's falling, well, not everybody, but a handful of people are falling for that. And it's like, come on, man. Like, I'll just tell you, I got no cut cars. I'm 10 toes down. I don't care. If you ask me anything, I'm going to tell you. And if you don't like it, I don't care. I'll move right on. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that type of, I'm just not used to that, bro. Like, how you said you were going on a tangent. Now I'm going on a tangent. So I'm going to shut up.
So all right, so we'll get back on track. Actually, you know what? Speaking of that, how have you had any repercussions or threats against you or people that you love, or any kind of intimidation tactics used against you or your family since having spoken out?
Yes, but not in the sense of them. So I've had people on here call into where I'm at and try to put lies on me to get me put behind a door or get me like put in the box, put in the hole or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like I've had people do that all the time. And like they tell them like, oh, he's got a cell phone in there, or he's got Twitter on his tablet. They've confiscated my tablet. They've looked at it. They're like, dude, there's nothing on here. And they gave it back. They took my whistleblower document, made copies of it, said, oh, this is what your people doing on the street for you, and this is how your own spaces is. Yep. They said, okay, here you go. And they said, okay, so you're just calling, and then you're getting plugged in, and that's how you're doing it. Yep. Okay, fine. That's fine. I said, well, what are you gonna do? They keep calling. They said, we're going to file harassment charges. I said, oh, yeah, okay, do your thing then. I said, if you're dumb enough to keep calling in there, it's on them. They already told me they're not going to keep coming to me because they already know. They already know, like, they can listen to what I'm doing. They know what's going on. So it's not, but the point is, to answer your question, yes, they've tried that. But once now, like, they understand that's not going to work, we'll see. And once I get 1 million people outside Capitol Hill and stuff like that with picket signs, with no violence, by the way, guys, but with picket signs and stuff like that, MJ's wealth is going to get, then I become a problem. Right now, I'm just some lonely little inmate they can discredit. No one's going to listen to.
And that's and again, we did talk about that earlier. This is something that, again, they can use against you and discredit you very easily. At least in like the grand scheme of things, that's how they look at it, which I do find a little bit interesting. That's how they roll, because it does make sense. How have these briefings changed, your life and you personally and professionally? I mean, it's a lot to take in.
Honestly, it was a weight, man. It was a weight that when I first started writing my whistleblower document, it helped. It helped because I kept that secret my whole life and mixed that with a few other things. No excuses, but life was life. And great mom, great dad. First stepdad was terrible. Second stepdad was awesome. A lot of betrayal in my life and things of that nature. So a lot of stuff I brought on myself. Not everything though. So I put all that together and to say this: the briefings were a weight that just weighed me down, bro. And I didn't understand for the life of me why I had this information until I wrote my whistleblower document. And then when I started coming forward here, and then it's like all my experiences in life led me to this. And I've always felt like I had a purpose. I could call it self-centered or what, but I've always felt like, man, I'm more important than fucking prison, dude. I'm more important than this, and I bring more to the table. I'm a good dude. I'm reliable. I'm honest. I'm trustworthy. Why? When you say why me for these briefings, a lot of times I say why me for this, and all the other stuff in my life I did. I didn't do this.
Right.
So it really bothered me, but it helped me grow. And when I started coming forward, it helped me grow. And then I finally found the right woman. And any great man will tell you, man, and I'm not even great, I'm just good. So any good man will tell you, once you find the great woman, the perfect woman, the right woman by your side, man, you can really conquer the planet with her, bro. And so I finally had that, and everything happened all at the same time. And it was like, I'm just going all out. I'm not holding back. We ain't got time for that shit anyway. You're running out of time.
I agree. And with that, so with that being said, what if your information is accurate? How do you believe that other nations are involved or aware of the plan? Like the ultimate, let's just say, I want to call that the ultimate plan, the false flag, right? The end game, if you will.
So, okay, I saw the direct evidence that the Majestic 12 group have infiltrated every major nation involved, everything on G20, along with about 5 other nations, through the Military and Joint Intelligence Committee, the Magic Eyes Only, MAJIC, since 1953. And they do this at least since the 1960s or 70s, I believe, through the United Nations Security Council. Because anyone that knows anything about MJ12 and those that don't, they were formed from the National Security Council in 1947 when that was formed, and CIA, so all in a response to Roswell. And They have now taken that and that satellite government that was formed here, and they have infiltrated the entire planet to have what they call full spectrum dominance. And they've now graduated to they have an entire intelligence community, an entire military at their disposal. And now they have China's military at their disposal. They have Russia's military at their disposal. They have all these different militaries and intelligence communities at their disposal, and they have them thinking that they're all enemies, when there's always somebody connected to the Magi committee that knows that they're not enemies, but they are purposely doing things and pushing that country in different directions on purpose to fit the orders of the Majestic 12 group's narrative put together since 1960s. And, the whole thing is divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. Then they built this thing up, and all these little wars and all these conflicts. And I say little, and by no means little. I mean, I just say that because it's not World War III. There millions of people have been murdered, bro, and civilians have been raped and killed, and just it's insane what's going on with the kids. And we can sit here and blame Netanyahu. Sure, okay, he seems like an asshole to me, but this is MJ12 doing this. They would not be authorized to do that. They would not be allowed to do that unless MJ12 wanted it to happen. China wouldn't be allowed to invade us unless they wanted it to happen. Ukraine would not be allowed to be invaded unless they wanted it to happen. There's only one place on this planet that's off limits to MJ12 and any aggression from human beings, and that's Antarctica. Nobody is allowed to fuck with Antarctica. So if you want to survive this false flag that's coming up, and very shortly, go there. But good luck being able to go there and stay there. So I suggest sewer systems of small communities.
Well, I guess with that, actually, I do want to jump on that. What can or what should the public do to prepare or respond to such a scenario? Because it doesn't seem like there's much we can do. It's not like we have technology on our side. They clearly are they have us outmatched in that field. So, I mean, if you do actually want to stop this, how? And I'm not saying you don't, but I'm saying, how can we?
Yeah, great question. So, I don't know about battery issue or not, but remind me after this to actually break down some of this technology for those that have never heard me do it before, because that'll really blow their mind. So
I'm going to do a couple different parts too, because I do like your conversation aspect. So
yeah, no doubt, we can definitely do a trilogy. That's a fact. So when it comes to how to prevent it, there's only one way. There is only one way to prevent it, and that's MJ12's biggest weakness, and that's the unity of the people they divided. There's only one way, and that's to identify, detain, and replace the Majestic 12 group and the committee members that answer to them. That's the only way, because if you do that, everyone else in the world that answers to them will stop. 100%, they'll stop. And especially now that the 70-year contract's over, the only thing we would have to worry about then is how do we still obtain a one world government without them? Because we're going to need it. Without that, the GFL's leaving. That's a fact. And if they leave, we're fucked. And so it is a fine line. We do need that, but their plan to get us there is just fucked. So we have to do that, and the only way to do that is to come together and force Congress to accept that MJ12 exists, and don't just call. This is what kills me about Congress, bro. They'll literally, they're like, okay, well, we need to go get this file. We need to go get these files. Okay, we need to go get this proof and this documentation. Okay, ring. Hello. Yeah, do you have classified files that you've killed John F. Kennedy? No? Okay. Thank you. And they'll just take their answer for it, bro. They have to show up. I'll give them the address. They can go straight to Bowling Air Force Base, and I'll tell them exactly how to get down, or at least somewhat how to get down to the subterranean sections underneath of the DIA headquarters at Bowling Air Force Base, and there is Serpo soil and bugs and shit from Planet Serpo down there. The whole 3,000-page final report, and the thousands and thousands, over 5,400 audio tapes of these journals that were made 90 minutes apiece from the people that went there while they were there. That shit is there, bro, and they could go get that shit. But if they just call and say, hey, you got alien stuff? No? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we looked into it. It doesn't exist. What? Like, we need to get Congress off their ass and force that shit, because if you don't do it, then you're going to be looking back and be like, hold on, this motherfucker knew what he was talking about. Too late now. So if that does happen, small town sewer systems, brother. It's the best way, because they're going to have particle beam and acoustical weaponry, and that's the best place to go. Small town sewer systems.
Small time systems. You heard it here. You got to become a Ninja Turtle to survive what's coming. That's the only way.
Without question.
Sorry, I like to have fun too. So I before we open it up to let some of the other people ask them questions, I have two things that I want to ask. If these beings are working with segments of human society, what does this mean for the average person? Are we part of a larger cosmic community, or is it some experiment? Some have even posed that it might be a prison planet.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are conspiracy theories put out on purpose. Those are misinformations put out on purpose that's mixed with real information, because then people could say, no, but this is real, and they're talking about this, so everything else they're talking about must be real. No, not real. This is not a prison planet. This was a slave planet, but that stopped over 3,000 years ago when our creators that made us for slaves left. This is not, well, I'm not going to say it's not an experiment, because it is, but we are not the experiment anymore. We were back in the day when our creators were still here. We are not the experiment. The animal life you see on this planet, a lot of it came from other planets. A lot of it. Like, our creators brought cows here, they brought sheep here, they brought goats here, they brought wheat, they brought barley, and what else? There was something else they brought. And they didn't bring it right away. They brought it once we were allowed to have, right before we were allowed to have civilization, because they wanted us to start, farming for them and stuff. And in order for us to have civilization, we had to learn that stuff. So they brought all that over and was like, all right, here, cook for us. And that's where you get the whole, make this and put it on the altar, and all that came from them. So, there's more animals here from extraterrestrial planets than, as experiments than we are. And the prison planet, MJ12 is who keeps us prisoner here, because they leave. We don't.
All right. And if that's correct, how do the secretive groups maintain control over information regarding alien life? Are there specific mechanisms or entities within the government or private sector tasked with this secrecy, other than MJ12, that is? You've already brought that up. You're muted if you are talking. I don't know. If you're still muted, just in case. Let me ask the question again. I don't, maybe you didn't hear. How do these secretive groups maintain control over information regarding alien life? Are there specific mechanisms or entities within government or private sectors tasked with the secrecy? Still muted. Is it just me, or am I not hearing? Maybe it's one of those, like, you got to drop out situations. Let me see if I can bring anyone up and hear them. Oh, God. The two people that want to talk are the only people. Of course. Of course. Oh, yeah. I knew this was coming. Grant, can you say something?
Hey Ty, I think he dropped it back down as a listener.
Oh, okay. Weird. But I can hear you. So it's not me.
Yeah, he's dropped off by the looks of it. I'd say he had some connectivity issues.
All right. I'm gonna say this right now. And I agreed to do this show. I know what I saw your post, Chris. I would really like it if we could play civil. I understand. I do really understand. Like I saw your post and where you're going with it. I asked all the same questions, and again, I'm just as skeptical as anybody here. So I just want to say that out loud. That I asked this man probably 27 different times why him. It doesn't make two. It doesn't. A lot of it isn't what I would think. How briefings would be handled. I've obviously asked a lot of probing questions about the incarcerations and stuff like that. I've even asked for his documents, any documentation he can give me. So I will let you guys up. Just keep it civil, please. That's all I ask. But I don't even know where he is, so I don't even know what to do anymore. You guys can all speak now, so maybe we can have a little chat. I mean, what are your
Hey Ty, I missed it's Grant here. Sorry, I missed the start of your space. But did Charles mention that the briefings that he claims to receive that they were in a skiff?
I believe he said that they were in a so that his handler would bring him to a hotel room.
Cool. So, well, that's a massive red flag right there. So that if classified information, if it's not delivered, if it was in a skiff, then there are by law there are legal visitor records kept of all individuals that passed through a skiff, date and time, who was their escort, reason for their briefing. So, I mean, Chris no doubt will speak more to that, but the fact that he is claiming that he was not briefed in a skiff is why I'm questioning the validity of his claims.
That's one of the things that I brought up immediately was the how informal it seemed, right? Because you would assume that information of this degree, not only would it have to be in a skiff, but it would have there'd probably be more layers than just even bringing someone like from Congress in to a skiff, and like there'd be so much added layer and protection to it. I don't know what that would mean, but it just doesn't sound like you could throw this around in a hotel room. He said his device died. So I don't know if we're going to be getting him back. But what so I don't know. I'm going to wait for his answer here. But I am a little I mean I'm skeptical, but I do want to hear things out. Did you guys see what I asked him to specifically what the next question was going to be was he posted a picture of this guy the other day, like this guy in like shorts, and said that was an extraterrestrial that was like 10 feet tall. And I up on that. Am I just not hearing anybody?
I don't think anybody's speaking.
Yeah, I think we all just kind of lost enthusiasm here.
Well, I mean, if it's okay, I'd like to back up what Grant said.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Grant is pretty on the money. From what I heard before he blocked me months ago, that fella Charles, he said that he was like, I don't know, he made it sound like it was his uncle that briefed him in his house and I think he said he was like a tech sergeant in the Air Force, and supposedly had shown him like some papers or something. And it was this whole, all of this information that he claims that he's talking about. Yeah. So one that like Grant said, that wouldn't happen. Two, if you're a criminal, chances are, if you have a clearance and you're associating with that person, and there's a potential that you're in any way giving information to that person, that clearance is going to strip real quick, and especially if it's a relative. Like, you have to disclose things like that when you're applying for a clearance. And so that's also far-fetched. And I actually called him out on that whenever I was in the space that he was in months ago, and he blocked me real quick. But my thing is what I was going to ask him, and just for the audience, like, for a guy that's been, a career criminal, convicted of bank robberies, convicted of enticing a minor, also using a minor in one of the robberies, why should we believe or see him being credible? Anything he's saying, like, that's a common sense question, right? I was going to give him a chance to answer that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and just berate him. Like, I was going to ask him the question, let him respond, because it is a big deal. Like, for this, and this, for this community that is interested in UFOs, UAP, NHI, whatever, credibility matters, because it's the evidence out there is already, like, depending on your stance, it's very fine that what even is considered evidence these days passes for that. So if we're building on credibility about what people are saying, like, and he's not providing any proof, then all we have is his credibility, right? That's it. Like, if he's not giving evidence, he's not providing those actual documents, which I know don't exist, then all we have is his credibility. And how can we do that when he's a career criminal, especially with children? Man, come on. Crimes with, like, that's kind of just where everybody should draw the line, to me.
Do you guys hear those sounds?
Yes, it's disclosure. He's the one that's doing it.
I was like, how the fuck is anybody how does that? So disclosure who? I want this to stop.
It's the guy with the blonde, this disclosure. He's the only other speaker. He dropped down the listener. There you go.
All right. My God. Sorry for that, man. And listen, you know what? I agree with you, but I do agree. But something in me, right? Like, so for instance, let me ask you about Bob Lazar. Do you believe the story of Bob Lazar?
No.
Okay, so you don't. So that, because I was going to bring up his past, right? So in having that ability to be able to discredit him, is something people bring up, right? Obviously, George Knapp and Corbella brought it up, and why would you use someone who's squeaky clean when you can use someone who's got a record that you could discredit, right? So it's that argument, I suppose, but that really doesn't hold so much water. It's hard to fight with that.
Correct. So, like, when it comes to getting a clearance, like, you do have to be clean, and like, his claim of, like, whatever tier clearance that was is absolutely, it's just BS. But what Bob Lazar has been associated with in his past automatically would discredit, like, that would he wouldn't get a clearance. He had financial issues, which is a big red flag.
You think he brought you up? Your mic's not actually on.
Is his mic on? Mic is on.
Okay. Is he back?
I don't know what that was.
All right, so go be on speaker. Bring me close.
Speaker.
Okay, now turn mic on.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me, brother?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to tell her to turn mic on, turn mic off, because my device overheated. I can't really do it the way I was doing it, so I have to do it this way now. It's like a third party way. So I've been listening though, as she was figuring out what she needed to figure out. So I'll tell you like this, right? The reason why, if I remember correctly, the reason why I blocked this dude wasn't because he questioned or I had questions. It was because of how he did it and how disrespectful he was being and how he wasn't really listening to what I was saying and how he's trying to overtalk me and call me names. And what he did was ask questions. And then when I was trying to give him an answer and tell him why that information was wrong, that he's still again repeating. That I tried to let him know he just was over talk me and things like that. So if he's done acting like that, I mean, I don't got no problem with you. I don't even know the guy. But what I will say is this: if you ask me a question about the record, I'm gonna tell you. But when you start talking about involving children and things of that nature, you don't know what you're talking about. But if you ask, you could get information and then know, because I don't lie and I don't give a fuck. So I just tell you. But I've never harmed a kid a day in my life. And when I was in my 20s and they arrested me for a crime I didn't commit, I met a girl over the phone and she's talking about breaking me out of prison for a crime I didn't commit. And I met her over the phone. I didn't know her. She turned out to be 16, 17. I didn't know that. So that became enticing a minor to commit a crime, even though I told her, never mind, don't do it. They still charged me with it, even though she never even did it. But you don't know that because you never asked me that. And so when I tried to tell you that, you just overtalked me, you feel me, and you didn't let me tell you. I've never done anything like that to a kid, never. And I never would. You know what I'm saying? And once I find out what I find out, then I keep it pushing. You understand what I'm saying? And there's other aspects of that to where I'm not going to reveal, because I'm not going to put someone else's business of whether they were maybe affiliated with this, affiliated with that. I'm not going to do that because that's something that's not my place to do. You understand what I'm saying? So what I will tell you is this, that it's not the narrative that's pushed, but at the end of the day, bro, listen, I am in prison. I'm in prison for a bank robbery that I did not commit. I have a bank robbery on my record from when I was in my early 20s, and that's why they were able to pin this one on me. But I will be coming home soon because of my rate of actual innocence and all that as soon as I get all this together. There's a reason why I answer any question. I don't care. You know, I got my proof I didn't do it, and I'll be vindicated. But if you want to not accept the truthful information because of that, that's on you. I can't, I'm not here to try to force you. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Chris is a very, so Chris is a U.S. Air Force veteran. He's a very, very credible journalist. He's a very good person, and I think he asks everything that he asks with at least decent intent and trying to get to the answers. So I'm going to roll it back to something that he did ask him and Grant. What do you say to people that contend about how you received your briefings, not being in a skiff, but a hotel? This is obviously a really unsecure facility, right? Just in its nature. So what is the answer to that aspect?
Okay, so that's a very common question that I get all the time, and that's what I keep trying to tell people. There's not one skiff that has ever existed to where all of this information has ever been put out there, period. Point blank, full stop. And it's never going to be. And the reason is because you don't get this the conventional way, because if you did, we'd have it. Congress would know it. President would know it. They're not in control of the information. And this, and I always call it very controversial program, is because it is. When this program finally becomes declassified, this Operation Society, I can feel free to put the FOIAs in. Like, you'll see, like, in some form of fashion, you'll find out that it's real. But the details of it, especially with me, I would almost guarantee it's still classified. But find out, put it in. I encourage you to put it in, matter of fact. So the point is this. This program was not conventional. This program was purposely created to grab people that are from the background in front and then vet them for this stuff, and take years. They grabbed you as a teenager. And again, I wasn't supposed to be in this program, but because I had a childhood mentor that was running the program with a couple other people and still wasn't recruiting me, but then when I was told something about a legitimate operation that was classified that I wasn't allowed to know about, and I revealed it to him as a joke, that changed everything. And as far as whether it's in a hotel, whether it's in a skiff, I'm telling you now, there's never going to be a skiff where this happens. And never gonna happen, brother. It's not. No matter what they tell you, 99% of what gets revealed in a skiff is purposeful misinformation to convince you of the lie that they want to push. Period. That's how it is. It doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean that you have to, accept that. But I'm telling you, and that is how it is. And as far as credibility goes, listen, my address doesn't dictate my credibility. My actions do. And if anybody has been paying attention to me at all, I've been more courteous and more honest on X with all these trolls and with all these people than everyone else that has been trolling, that I've had to block, or that have been over talking me in spaces. I've been more courteous than they have. But I'm the criminal, though. You feel me? I've been more nice and forthcoming about everything about my past than anything. So if you want to talk about credibility, you have to take everything into account. I'm an open book. My girl, she'll tell you. Like, I'll tell, it doesn't matter what you ask me. I'm going to tell you. It doesn't matter, though. Unless it can get someone else time in prison, I'm going to tell you what it is. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Like, I'm always going to be forthcoming because as long as I tell you the truth, then it doesn't matter. My story will remain the same. I don't need to remember what I said. I'm always going to say the same shit because it's always going to match. Because I'm always going to tell you the truth. If you don't understand it, that's fine. I get that. You know how unique I know this is? I know how unique this is. I know how different this is than the conventional cookie cutter way that people come forward. I get it. But that doesn't mean it's not real. You understand what I'm saying? If you really go to my, I'll unblock you to go to my highlights. Just so you can look at them. And really read them. And I heard you say how you didn't believe Babazar. Babazar was a real story too. But I can see that you kind of took a little bit of a position to where you're like kind of like anti the information, but still that's healthy. I'm telling you, that's a healthy standpoint. But take that standpoint objectively to my highlights section. Look at the information and the details. I've given file numbers. Go check them out. If you want the proof, I can only give you so much. Go get it. I can only give you what I have. I don't talk about things I don't know. You know what I mean? Michael.
Okay. So does anyone want to respond?
Yeah, can I with two questions?
Go.
One, I'd like, so he said 99% of information in skiffs, what was it that he said was misinformation, I believe he said, or something along that lines. I'll have to pass that along to the people I work with because I work in, I've been in plenty of skiffs. So I guess the information I get all the time is propaganda and weird. But anyways,
I think what he was referring to is like the information about this topic, but maybe I'm giving that credit too much. I don't know.
Oh no, you could be right. I don't know. But my question is for him. So I think it was his uncle that someone that gave him this briefing or whatever. Does he know what his uncle did in the Air Force and what his rank was when he divulged that information? And what base was he at? Just simple questions.
Okay, yeah, definitely not my uncle, as I've said the whole time. Childhood mentor. Covert name was Robert May. If AFOSI ever gives me assurances that his wife and kids won't lose the pension he left behind when he died April 21st of 2018, I will reveal and come forward with his real name because I know he broke the law during my briefings. So if they give that assurance, I'll make sure you get that. So yes, he was a senior field agent within Air Force Office of Special Investigations, Special Projects branch out of Fort Bellevue. So that's every answer you just asked for, you just got. And as far as what I said about the skiffs, I was only referring to this subject, obviously. I'm not talking about terrorism. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm talking about 99% of this, or I'll even go as far as 98. We'll give you that. 98% of everything about this subject only is all misinformation to push a specific narrative. And it just is. It's facts. Michael.
So I'm assuming he said that he was AFOSI. Is that what I got out of that? Or?
Yeah. So it was a childhood mentor. Again, so he did say Air Force Office of Special Investigation, same as Rick Doty, I believe, right?
Yep.
Michael.
It is.
Okay, yeah. So AFOSI, specifically the Special Projects branch out of Fort Bellevue. And that's where the senior field agent, special agent under the covert name, you can find Robert May. They called him Rick, just like Rick Doty for Rich Doty, but no relation. And yeah, they were both AFOSI, and they were both part of Special Projects Branch, but not all of them were out of Fort Bellevue. But this Operation Society was ran out of Fort Bellevue. Off.
Yeah, so I think he's saying Fort Bellevue. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so I don't know too many Air Force bases that have a fort in front of them. Those are usually Army bases. I could be wrong there, but I mean, I remember the conversation I had with him, and I stepped into space before I ever came up, and he definitely said it was his uncle. So I'm a little bit confused by that. Because I do remember that distinctly, but it is what it is. So those are my questions. I appreciate it.
I really do appreciate it.
Hey, just real quick, I've always said that he was like an uncle. That's I can see you sometimes have maybe you don't always hear me, and I get that. My unconventional ways that I have to speak on spaces sometimes, I get that. So, but yeah, like an uncle to me, he definitely was. He was like a big brother, like an uncle. But if you ever want to see the first time I ever spoke about it, this will help you. You can go to acclimatenow.com, and there's a recording that will take you to a YouTube recording that I recorded 3.5 years ago, way before that space. And you'll hear me say the same thing. So that's the best proof I can give you for that, brother. And I appreciate you coming forward.
Yeah. Any other questions from who we have up here? I'll bring up Paul as well.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I was just saying, I don't doubt anything he says, but by this point, with the avalanche of information that has come out over the past year, shouldn't we all be able to independently and objectively realize that, that we aren't alone on this planet and that there are advanced civilizations interacting with us without the need, without the need of some government official or anyone like Bob Lazar or like this gentleman here, revealing that information. You know what I mean? To me, it's pretty obvious that there's some type of advanced civilization living in our oceans or in deep earth caverns, and they've been interacting with our societies or with us for thousands of years, since people have been reporting seeing these crafts and interacting with beings for thousands of years. So and I think the part about being the misinformation is the fact that we've been brainwashed to believe that they're visitors, that they're coming from outside of the planet or from these other dimensions or from the future, when in reality, there's just these other there's another dominant species, again, sharing the planet with us. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think it's more or less. I don't think we need for most of the people in say the quote unquote UFO community. I think we've all come to the realization somehow that we're not alone. It's more about a societal consensus being reached, right? Where it's not about just one faction saying we're not alone. It's the world knowing we're not alone. So I think that, for most people, the Fox News dad, he's not going to accept the information until Fox News says it, right? So those are we're not trying to sway the UFO community to it. It's more about the public, the quote unquote normies.
Right, but I think
also I wanted to say, excuse me, if you don't mind, real quick, I just wanted to say that they are extraterrestrial. However, you're not wrong. Some of these species have been around since way before we were even created 224,000 years ago. Some of these beings have been here for millions of years, and they do live subterraneously, and they have bases subterranean. But now, so do we, and we live together down there in bases and in underwater bases. There's 2 specifically in the Atlantic Ocean alone that we have ourselves, and then there's plenty all up and down the Adriatic coastline. You have plenty in the oceans, plenty subterranean. It's all about 1.5 miles down when it's terrain anyway. Yeah, they're there, bro. And some of them have been there so long that they could be classified as being from here, I guess, because some of them have been born here. So yeah, that does track because they have been here that long. But you have others that have not been. ET2's only been interacting with this planet for about 2,500 years, but they've influenced our societies and our languages more than a lot of others because they've been that interactive. Some of them don't interact with us at all. Some of them are just here doing them. And some of them just are here on the run. The reptilians came here on the run from their female queens. That's a fact. The females took over. They were their warriors, just like in lions in the prairies. They were females of the hunters, but they were the warriors, and they took over. And they was like, we don't need these kings. We can do it ourselves. And they fled, and that's who came here. And it's a whole. Hey, we definitely got to do 2 more of these, do this trilogy, because I only got about 3 minutes left myself. But we got about 10% of the information. You heard me.
So let me finish with if you guys don't mind, I'm going to finish with the question that he dropped out on. So let me get that out, and then if whatever time we have left. So how do the secretive groups that you're mentioning, including Majestic 12, how do they maintain control over information regarding alien life? Are there specific mechanisms or entities within the government or private sectors tasked with this?
Yeah. So the most effective way they ever did it was Project Mockingbird. Okay, Project Mockingbird, and it has other names now that I can't recall, but Project Mockingbird infiltrated. Back then, it was all magazines and newspapers and cables. Now it's all media, national and international, and they control the narrative as they pit us against each other. This, CNN, all Democratic hate Republican, and Fox News, all Republican hate Democrat. That's by design, and it's usually the national security correspondent or somebody connected to national security, or even editor-in-chief at times, that are just taking dictation, and they do all their job and report all the news, but when it comes to this subject, they kill stories or they run stories purposely. If you notice, this is facts, and this is evidence you can use. This is real evidence you can use. When the New Jersey drone situation was happening, that I told people was going to happen, every single news agency all called them the same thing, all called them drones, all shot down the alien thing, all played the X-Files music by accident all of a sudden, and then all of them stopped talking about it all the same day. All of them.
Right. That style, when you hear news media repeating verbatim, it is a red flag of some kind of psychological operation to some degree, at least from experts that I've talked to and guys that Danny Jones and Julian have had on. So I do find that to be interesting. You only have a couple seconds left. Does anyone have a last minute question they want to squeeze in for the next time?
Yeah, can I just verify? Did he say Fort Belvoir, Belvoir in Virginia?
I'm not good at spelling, but yeah, it's a joint base actually. That's why it's Fort, but it's a joint base, just like Andrews became a joint base for the Air Force. I think it's Andrews. Can't remember, but it's joint base where they have Air Force operations and active Air Force personnel at Fort Belvoir. Yeah, so you can definitely, I don't know if you have contacts within OSI, but you could just ask them if you can talk to special projects branch operators and ask them about their presence at Fort Belvoir and see if they'll tell you about Operation Society Hype for you. And I guess, I don't know.
Well, I can
tell you.
I would love to, but the AFOSI is not at that base.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that they were on above board saying, hey, look, AFOSI is at this base. What I told you is they have members operating out of that base. I didn't say that you would know about it.
They don't have an office there.
I didn't say they had an office there.
Hey, average Chris, can we just move on, please? Jesus Christ, this isn't.
Well, I'm just poking holes in the story, but the obvious holes, I'm pointing it out to everybody. There's not any AFOSI.
You're just doing the same
they're
thing.
Not holes.
This is why I blocked you.
Yeah, please let it go, dude. Jesus Christ.
Okay, yeah, talk about reptilians with the guy in the prison.
No, but there is a space for that kind of discourse. It's obviously healthy. I mean, Chris is owed the same respect everyone else is.
He is, but at the same time, he's purposely coming in with a narrative he already has in his mind. If I'm gonna, and everyone else gonna listen to what he has to say, he's purposely trying to get people not to listen to me. Instead of saying, you know what, I think I believe something else, but let me hear what you have to say. So that's more responsible of a take. He's sitting here telling me what he knows. Like, if you have all the answers, what are you doing in spaces looking for them all? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you know everything already, then what are you asking for? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, move on. Like the other guy said, like, we don't got time for all that.
Understood. So I think we're gonna end it here, guys. You're obviously running out of time yourself, so we'll have to do another one of these. Questions that I didn't get to. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for doing this. I know it can be a little daunting to speak and talk, but I really do appreciate your interacting with us.
100%. And I got to shout out my girl, man. Autumn, baby girl, thank you. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to continue. So everybody thank Autumn and follow Autumn.
Thank you, Autumn. And follow Autumn. Thank you, Chris, for the question. Thank you, Grant, for your questions. Thank you to the UFO community for being a place that we can all come to, where we can all feel, like we have some sort of purpose and engage with like-minded individuals. That at the end of the day, all we have is each other, and I've gotten out of a real bad headspace in the past couple months, just engaging with people in this community. So, sometimes we hear stories like, for instance, Jake Barber's story. People are really, really on the fence about all this psionic shit. A year ago, if you had aired that Ross Coulthart interview, I don't think anyone would have taken it seriously. But, the days change. Yesterday's paranormal becomes today's normal. So, what will happen tomorrow? I guess that is the question. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone who contributed.
Thank you, bro.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.